Hey guys, this is Caleb with White Metal Games here, and we have a specialty video for you here tonight. This is one of the new Wraithknight models released by GW for the new Eldar release. My friend Spence picked one up for his Eldar allied army, and we wanted to magnetize it so you could see all the different options that were available to it. Fortunately, this model doesn't have too many options. It only has about 4 to 6 different magnetization points you really need to worry about. So this video is going to go over the points of magnetization and the sizes we used so that you will be able to duplicate that in your own process. Bear in mind, if this isn't something you're comfortable with doing, this is definitely the kind of thing that we specialize in at White Metal Games. So just send me an email at info@whitemetalgames.com, and we'll be sure to send you a price for the model plus the magnetization. So the easy ones first. On the top 2 shoulder pads, we use these 1/8 by 1/16 rare earth magnets. Now these are about the smallest magnets you're really going to use for a model this size. They do make smaller ones, but those are generally just for infantry that have hand swaps, that sort of thing. So you can see here that we sunk those beneath the sponsons on the weapons. And then we had the counterpoints here on the tops of his shoulder pads. Now we haven't fully glued this guy together yet for painting purposes, so he's in sub-assembly. So if you see him falling a little bit to pieces, that's why. So you can see those 2 counterpoints there on the top. Now whenever you drill out holes like this, I always like to start smaller than the intended hole and then move up 1 stop further with each drill bit. That way you don't blow out the hole. What you don't want to do is go too big too fast, and then the plastic will shear itself and you'll have damage and you'll have to repair that, and that's just a pain. So start slow. Those spons on top, actually, they're not very deep. They're less than 1/8 of an inch deep. So if you don't go too deep with the drill bit, you can actually just shove those right in there, and a little bit of glue will be all you'll need to finish that up. So that's nice and simple. And then with the guns on top, although you do have 3 different options for these, including, I think, bright lances and scatter lasers and different stuff like that, what you can do is just leave this unglued. Don't even worry about a magnet for that if you don't have to. Because once you prime that up with some sort of primer, it's going to be a little more snug. And also bear in mind that even though there will be some paint stripping there when you push this in and pull it out all the time, that snugness is actually going to help with the grip. So it's not going to be a bad thing. So you don't have to worry about wasting magnets on those. The arms were by far the more difficult part, and let me show you why. So here on the inside of the arms, this cavity is actually a hollow cavity, right here where my thumb is pointing to right now. Now we used the largest magnet we could allow in that space, which is a 1/4 by 1/16 inch. So that's 1/4 inch wide by 1/16 inch deep. So it's deep enough that it fits in there just fine, but it's almost all the way to the outer edges of the width on this. And you really need something that big because the weight of these arms is significant and they're long. For example, this sword arm with the ghost glaive is very long. All the weight is perpetuated towards the end of that thing. So you need a strong rare earth magnet in order to support that. So to make that work, you're going to have to use a larger magnet than you normally would. For example, if he had a light resin fine cast arm, you'd be able to get away with a lighter magnet. But in this case, where it's plastic and it's solid cast plastic, it's thick all the way through, it's not hollow, you're going to need something a little sturdier. So in the same way we did the weapon sponsons here on top of his shoulders, what we did is we started with a very small bit. I started with a 1/16 inch bit, and then we moved all the way up to a 1/4 inch going through every stop. So it was give or take about 8 or 9 drill bits. So you work up slowly, you drill out the hole each time, and then even then at the very end of that, we still didn't get a perfectly snug fit. So what we had to do is we had to score it out on the inside with a hobby knife. We used a little bit of gray stuff, which you can still see just a trace of there, and then we glue that into place. Now, we did have a little bit of a seam issue where the seam on one of them, it didn't fit quite snugly perfectly. So one of the seams along the edge here, which you can barely see where my finger is pointing, was a little wide. So what I did was I put that towards the top of the shoulder pad, since that will be hidden from viewers' perception. They'll never be able to see that. So put those places where there's scoring or damage up towards the places that the viewer will never see. And just remember that once you shadow that in or shade that in, you're really never going to see that again. So it's really not the sort of thing you're going to have to worry about. For the underneath of the arms, we used the same size. We used a 1/4 inch by 1/16 inch magnet here, and you can see it underneath it there. Now, we just glued that into place. You really could, if you wanted to, use a little green stuff or a little gray stuff to solidify that and hold that in place. But in my point, it's a little redundant. You don't really need to. The magnet is not going to rip out of there. It's nice and glued in. So if you feel like that's important, go ahead, but I don't recommend it. You don't have to do it. It's an unnecessary step. Finally, the last point of magnetization on this was here on this arm. So on the right arm, you have the option to either go with the Sun Cannon or the, what's it called, the Heavy D Cannon? Heavy Wraith Cannon. So this either comes as a match set with the Heavy Wraith Cannon, or you get the shield that goes with the Sun Cannon. So with the Sun Cannon and the Heavy Wraith Cannon being on the same arm, we had to find a point to magnetize that. So what we did was we clipped out this. We didn't clip it out, actually. We just glued a 1/8 inch by 1/16 inch magnet here on the inside there. And then we did a matching corresponding magnet on the other side. Now you'll notice that we used a smaller magnet here. We used this size smaller down from this. Oh, actually, I have to correct myself. This in here is actually a 3/16 by 1/16. This in here that I'm shaking right now at the camera is a 1/8 by 1/16. So this is a slightly smaller magnet, and we could get away with that because the barrel here, as you can see down at the bottom, is smaller. If I had used the same size magnet, it would have gone all the way to the edges, and that would have been a pretty quick way to blow that out. So we used a smaller magnet. Now that does mean that it'll be slightly weaker, and that doesn't matter so much on the Wraith Cannon because this is a very light, very lightweight piece. The Sun Cannon's a little heavier, so as you can see, it has just a little wiggle to it, but not too much. It's certainly not perceptible once you have him up. And once you put him on the table, unless you're spending a great deal of time moving him, it's really not going to be a big deal. As you can see here when he's positioned, there's no wiggle at all. It's not like it's shaking, it's not like it's going to fall off. And that's just the reality of magnetization. You have to figure out what's the biggest magnet you can use to achieve the effect you want without going overboard. So I guess that's about it for this video. If you have any questions about it, please email us at info@whitemetalgames.com. And until next time, put your minis where your mouth is.